I'd like to invite our speakers to come back up and Max to convene a Q&A session. I think we might need to reshuffle this.
Okay, so we'll have some really good questions from you folks for our speakers here today. What we'd like to do is kick that off, and because I'm the moderator here, I get the first shot. So one of the questions that has been developed in my career in waste to value is that often in the early days you'll have a waste stream, and the people who have it will say, my gosh, can I give it to you so we don't have to dispose of it? And that's really, really good. You might even charge them for taking it away from you. And then a little while later they say, gosh, you guys are making a lot of money out of that. Did you realise the waste stream's just gone up in value? And you'll have to pay a lot more for your raw material. So how do you, and then you put the numbers through and you say, oh my gosh, there goes my business. The waste is no longer free. So how do you deal with that? So does someone in the panel want to take a go at that one?
I can start. Yes, I completely agree. I've heard of many stories of actually insect farms overseas literally being shut down for the same example, people seeing the money that is in their waste streams. I think directionally at the moment we're looking at industry partners, people who already have waste, and an idea to help mitigate that for us is the idea of some JVs. So that's something that is on our kind of horizon. Anybody else?
Yep.
Hi, so New Zealand Extracts, can people hear me? Okay. We've experienced this exact same issue from day one. So we took grape, Mark, free. We had it trucked because actually we wanted just the seed out of it. And then a couple of years later, the wineries came to us and said, well, you're actually making some bucks. So we want to now charge you for this material. And the price every year is ratcheting up. And also with our other materials, black currants, the skins, the kiwi fruit, the skins, boysenberry, the skins, all the same. When you start making $1, they all want a slice of the can. But up to that, they were paying to bury it in the ground. You just got to wonder, well, we're trying to do you guys a favour, and all you're trying to do is now, because we've actually done something, you want to take some of what we're actually struggling to do, and what we have to do is to pass those costs on to our customers. And our blackcurrant in particular, our sales have dropped by nearly 60% because the price has got ratcheted up so much that it's non-economical anymore to do. And what they're doing is they're now sending it to China. Cheap production, and they'll pay us top dollar for the raw material. And then they'll sell it back to New Zealand. So it's a frustrating exercise, and one that we've just got to live with, because what other choice do we have? Close up the shop and go away? But we're adding more value as we go forward with our products. We're actually doing blends now, which we find we get better return on investment rather than try to have commodities, because the Chinese market in particular, they actually import all their seed from Europe. And then they turn around and sell it to companies all over the world at ridiculously low prices, which we can't afford to do. So I thank you for the question. It's just something that's life.
Probably three parts to us. One is one of the benefits of our technology is it's quite agnostic to waste type. And so, as Daniel showed in his graph, when we hit that barrier, we can move on to a waste which doesn't charge, and we can move that during the year and come and go according to demand. Some of our waste producers do have to dispose of because they don't have a disposal route. Secondly, our technology is very smashy, and so we can target wastes that are particularly recalcitrant and particularly nasty, particularly contaminated, in which case they have very little alternative other than to landfill or do something like that. And so we can target those sort of waste streams that are very low cost or unlikely to ever have a lot of value recovery in terms of charging. And then the third thing from a techno-economic analysis, in terms of the products that we generate, we have some room there that if we can get the market prices of the renewable natural gas up and so forth, we can go away from a reliance on gate fees and not have to take waste streams where we have to charge people to take their waste away.
Great, thank you.
I might
Yep.
just quickly add a little bit from the producer end, because I think it's an interesting challenge, and I think as a company, the approach we've taken is, well, we can either produce waste and then find outlets for it, either pay for that service or give it away, or we don't produce waste and we produce remaining raw materials and we maintain them at high standards and we produce quality that is worth something. And now it's different depending on the industry you're in and the outputs that you have. And I know those challenges that I've heard, of course, are very real. And so when those investments have been made on that R&D and the development, of course, that deserves value for them. So I guess you either, I think you have a couple of choices. You either have your waste and you pay for the privilege, or you work the other side and you develop your process in-house so that you don't have your waste.
Great, thank you. One of the things that has struck me through my career is that New Zealand is different, and I'm always, when you're looking at a waste, people can say, oh no, I don't want to make a Me Too product, apple pommes throughout the world, etc., etc. But we've had a couple of examples here today about how simply looking at your New Zealand waste stream can turn up differences, whether that's fat composition, whatever it is that may have benefits and functionalities. So we'll just have a quick go to the panel and say, how important is it to characterise your unique New Zealand stream as part of creating that competitive advantage that leads to your product having a competitive advantage in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, good question. I think that's exactly what we're tapping into. So grass-fed beef is lean, and that's actually unusual around the world. The majority of beef is actually produced on feedlots, and that has a lot of fat. But that's actually not ideal for a manufacturing ingredient. So the grass-fed benefit that New Zealand has is that we can produce a lean manufacturing ingredient at scale. Now, if you look at where things are trending as far as our beef prices, it's the North American market paying us the most, and it's paying us for our dairy genetics because they're looking at lean beef as an essential manufacturing ingredient. So that's where I think the big scale opportunity for New Zealand is, and it also allows us to do all sorts of interesting things when you start thinking about it in terms of ingredients. And like the rest of the panel here, there's other functional ingredients from waste products that are really beneficial to health, whether it's pets or humans, that we can start incorporating together to have multiple properties, and it trades on what people think of New Zealand already, which is clean, green, innovative. And I'm a big believer in that we should be looking inside of the opportunities we have here, not trying to look at offshore at what other people are doing and try and replicate it.
Very good. Okay, well, I think
add a little bit more to that.
Yeah.
If I may. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. But essentially, plant-based materials here in New Zealand have actually adapted themselves to our climatic conditions, which actually does deliver a point of difference. I mean, we have much higher levels of UVA and B here. Polyphenols and antioxidants in general, developed by the plant, are there to act as their suntan lotion. Okay? So the seeds are the start of a new life in the suntan lotion, and because of the high levels of radiation, they actually develop much more antioxidant, and they also differentiate that antioxidant. So physically what we've done is tried to find out that point of difference, because that gives us some uniqueness that the rest of the world cannot compete against.
And I'd just like to add one more point, is just the species differentiation that we have here in New Zealand, particularly in the aquaculture space. You would have seen my chart looking at the Chinook king salmon and how small that piece of the market is. provenance can only take us so far as being a New Zealand product. It's hard to differentiate if that's a driver for customers overseas purchasing our products. But what we do know is that, for instance, with the Chinook salmon, it's a very rich, flavorsome salmon, and so chefs really like it, and that drives uptake, and pets really like it because of all that fat and that flavor in the treats, and that drives uptake. And green shell mussels as well, I think, has some of those benefits, that they see with having that, unique species to work with. And I think around the country, we have like Manuka honey and others. It goes overseas, but we tend to be leaders in that space, and that definitely helps.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up for questions from anyone from the floor. Yes, Jim.
Yes, hello, I'm Jim Jones. The BPA is a great initiator fund that gives access to expertise around New Zealand, but for particularly the startups sitting up there, that funding journey has to go to bigger funds to get your R&D up to commercialisation level than BPA can offer. So it would be quite interesting for the audience to hear a little bit about that journey. And Jesse mentioned, of course, the Waste Minimisation Fund giving $3+ million. Are the other startups, and you can add to that too, willing to comment further on how they've done their funding journeys?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to start off with these things. The first thing partnering up with the BPA teaches you is that you can only really solve one problem, and you need to have partners. So the BPA is the soft start to building partnerships and trust. Because what you have is you have everything yourself, and you want to solve all the problems yourself, but actually to grow you've got a partner. And so the BPA is your first partnership in the science or exchange of knowledge, but then you have to start building other strings to your bow as far as finance and other things. So the BPA is a start point for your intellectual property is what you have, and so you're starting that journey of trust. It goes up and down, but it is a soft start and a great way to start building your capabilities as an owner-operator.
Yeah, the bottom line is we wouldn't be able to do a lot of that New Zealand research without the BPA. We wouldn't want to be fair. The CRIs are amazing, but they're not cheap, and that's not a dig. I've lived in the CRI model for a long time, but it's expensive research. And so if we had, the BPA allows us to indulge in very important research with infrastructure that we could not possibly afford, and scientists we could not possibly afford. So that's a starting point. But I think what I would say is maybe as a criticism of the New Zealand system, to your question, is there's a massive gap now between that good BPA type work. Many of the grants are very good, but they're very focused on what can you do for New Zealand. Waste Minimisation Fund, Sustainable Farm, Fibre Waste Futures Fund, they're all much about what's your impact on New Zealand. You're going, well, I don't know, not a lot, because our market is over there, and you should be happy that we go over there and come back. And right now that is a big gap, ironically. The VC industry in New Zealand is very much go over there and make lots of money and bring it back, and we're going, well, we'd love to, but there's a gap. And so it's a bit of a catch-22, I think. There's good funding, in my opinion, in New Zealand to support New Zealand-focused innovation in some ways, in terms of impact in New Zealand. There's a massive gap for how to get your technology to TRL7 to make it investable to the international market as a New Zealand company. We suffer from the tyranny of distance. Investors see us as too far away, and we suffer from that gap. We can't get far enough matured where they all jump at you, and that's a problem. We've just put in as part of the Clean Tech Group, just put in an application to the Science Review, and one of our recommendations, to be fair, is that New Zealand should adopt the BPA model as it works in terms of its function, and use that for that next step as well, because we think that's a great way to go.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yep, one over there.
Hi there, I'm Abby from Plant Food. So cool to see all of these world-leading solutions for organic waste management and the efforts that you've driven to establish them here. I guess bioresources, like any other resource, is limited, and we are working in a small, geographically confined country. How do we avoid unnecessary or unconstructive competition between the variety of solutions that all of you are seeking to establish?
Who's going to get the waste?
I'll fight you.
This, I guess, it comes back to relationships. And the reality is, I think we all work in this room, we are not actually recognising out there that the landfills are competing for it as well. There's 41 anaerobic digesters if you talk to them. And who's in Auckland here, Red Vale community is about to have a 9-year increase in application for Red Vale landfill. Now, I went to a meeting with Waste Management. Just put things in perspective here, everyone. They're going to get 9 years extension. That will give them $2.2 billion additional revenue. That's why they're fighting for your waste. The government will receive $40 million a year in levies, which could go to the Waste Minimisation Fund. Wouldn't that be great if that was spread across this community? But at the sacrifice of Red Vale. But Red Vale will take 600,000 tonne a year of waste in Auckland. That's a resource, an opportunity. So I think, to be fair, our competition is not amongst ourselves. It is, look, for me, anaerobic digesters, I compete with the composters a bit, but they're also having their own, leaching issues and everything else. I don't think we need to worry about the landfills are the ones who we should be competing against. They're the ones who've got the gate fees, and it's a science challenge. But I think also we need to have days like today to actually work with each other and help each other, because we can take the technology overseas.
Cool. Next question down here.
Steve Wilson from the Product Accelerator. Oh, thank you. Even better. We talked about competition for feedstock. Is there an opportunity to collaborate on the market-facing side? You know, if we've got all these unique waste streams in New Zealand, is there sticky business to be had combining them in any way? And have we got a forum for talking about that?
Anyone want to have a go at that one?
Look, the reality is you're sitting in a country which has actually got a lot of duopolies. So you look at the fertiliser industry, you've got Balance and Ravenstown, you've got the fuel industry, BP and Z, you've got Foodstuffs and Woolworths, you've got the waste companies. Short answer is that you've got to build relationships with, we've only got a few retailers, and it's hard. It's hard as just any company to get into retail. So the relationships, and that's where it comes back to what does BPA offer. It's learning how to make partnerships to get things into markets. You can't solve all the problems by yourself. You've got to start building partnerships, and that's what the BPA, I think, is the biggest catalyst for learning to open your door and accept rejection and keep going.
Very good. Any other questions? Yeah, we've got some down here. We'll try at the back there first.
Hi, this is Jay from Plant Food Research. Just to add is, I'd also talk to Abby in quite a distance. So I really appreciate that Julian has showed the hierarchy, presented the hierarchy in his presentation. If there's any chance that we can turn a kind of organic waste into to maintain the nutritional level, rather than just burn it up, that I think will create more value. For example, if we have any organic waste or food waste that can go to Jess Stanley business, and perhaps theoretical or more philosophically, I think it creates better value and to the end product than just burning it down. And also, there are also some other opportunities in this country and in the world that create some renewable energy just alongside and in parallel. That's my comments. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for that comment. And I think one thing I'd like to add to that is that there's not going to be any one solution, I think, to tackle this challenge. There's going to be many, many different solutions. And so when you see kind of a slew of different companies that are competing with each other, well, maybe there is some competition there, but there's also a need for multiple outlets. As a primary producer ourselves, we've had third-party relationships that, maybe that company goes out of business, maybe they decide to close their doors for whatever reason to our operation, and so you need to have multiple outlets. You need to build those good relationships over time. But as an example, we're all about maximizing the value of our remaining raw materials, but we still have components that are hard to tackle. For instance, our salmon mortalities from our sea fish farms. One of the big reasons we were able to drive towards that 93% utilization last year, and we hope to be closer to 99% utilization this year, is because we developed a plant to stabilize that material and then be able to send it to biogas production with the likes of Andrew and his team up north. And you would think, but now you're driving this material across the country to the middle of the North Island. Well, that's got to have a big carbon footprint. But actually, the carbon footprint's lower for us because now that it's stable, we build volume and we transport it in 40-ton loads, in the peak season when it exists. And it might only be like one load a month in the wintertime and a few loads a month in the summer. But that gives us the ability to utilize that material which otherwise would be going to landfill. And there's cost savings in that. It doesn't necessarily make us money, but it's a material that is a challenging material to deal with. And I think that's something you need to understand, is you have those materials that can be food grade and those that can't be, either because of regulation or because of the nature of the material. And so we need a lot of different solutions out here. We need a lot of smart people working on these because it's going to take a lot of us to get it done, I think.
And we have a lot of waste in New Zealand. We make food for 20 million and we have 5 million people here. So there is a big scope for us. Not to, blow my horn about black soldier fly, but yes, making protein is hard, and that does, taking waste and making protein, it takes many years to grow a cow or, farm chicken, and in 2 weeks we can have protein. So this is an alternative in moving up that hierarchy. But I really agree, we need as many people as we can being brave and being entrepreneurial and trying to do things differently. So yeah, I feel like definitely there's not competition here anywhere in the near foreseeable future, which is great.
Great, thank you. Well, unfortunately, we're running a bit short of time, so I'm just going to end off with a quick-fire question. But I encourage those who have the questions to please, at lunchtime, talk with the panel and those around you about those, because there's been some really quick, really good questions come up. Just to finish, if we can just go along the panel, and you've got one sentence to answer this question is, if you were in a company and you were looking about, perhaps I should do something with my waste stream, or I've got a fantastic idea that I can make something out of waste, having been through and done the hard yards yourself, what would be your piece of advice to that person? Now, obviously, your first piece of advice would be go and see the BPA, but after that, what would be your one piece of advice that you would give something the benefit of your experience? Right, go.
Think carefully whether you can scale your technology by staying in New Zealand.
Cool.
Talk to as many people as you can. I love connecting with people. I've loved the journey. I've managed to go speak to many scientists. Oh, that's me. Speak to as many people as you can, but don't take all the advice. Use your intuition as well.
Follow the money. It is brutal, but you actually don't lose. You can still be passionate about the waste, but find your CFO, find your executives, and talk the money. They don't get waste, they don't get sustainability, they don't get environment, they get money.
I'd say don't be afraid of disrupting your own business model, because your waste streams could disrupt you in the future. We're in an industry at the moment, in the meat industry, that this is a challenge to the status quo. So there's not a lot of support for this systems change.
Simply, is your idea marketable, and is there a market for it? Because otherwise you're wasting your time.
Yeah. And I would say get curious. Get curious about your raw materials and do a mass balance.
Thank you very much, panel. So thank you all, you speakers. It's been a wonderful session. Great to see things happening on the ground. It's been marvellous. We've got to, lunch will be served out there, so please be back here at 2 p.m. And if I can ask the board of the BPA and the senior leadership team of the BPA to stay behind for a photo, please. So lunch awaits. Thanks, everyone.